interest of time, I'll get started. Other people can trickle in. So thanks for joining us tonight, everyone. I'm excited to begin this discussion and Q&A with our guest, Gabriela Romero. Gabriela is an Albany Law alumna, a public defender, and a Common Council member of the 6th Ward. She was raised in Albany by Puerto Rican parents who not only instilled a sense of ambition in her from a young age, but the values of and struggles of hard work and public service. From working at the Albany Public Defender's Office as a trial attorney and local court advocate to serving as a Common Council member of the 6th Ward, Gabriela has built a career dedicated to strong advocacy as an attorney in an adversarial system, fighting for people who don't have the resources to defend themselves from a system that criminalizes poverty, mental health, and addiction. As a Common Council member, Gabriela has advocated for public safety reform and increased accessibility in city infrastructure. She has listened to her community and responded, prioritizing public safety reforms and transparency and creating meaningful change. If any of you were able to attend our event last semester with Gabriela and Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, I'm sure you remember a bit of her story and are as excited as we are to have her back with us tonight. So with that, I'm happy to turn it over to you, Gabriela, to discuss a bit more about your experience before we start taking questions.
Sure. Thank you, Rachel. It's really exciting to be with you guys again. I had such a great time last time we were here, kind of chit-chatting and talking, kind of brainstorming towards the end. It felt like just talking about how to get more involved and find your voice or like find your right space. So I kind of wanted to maybe tell you guys a little bit about what I'm working on in the council and some of the challenges that I've been facing, and then would love to take questions or kind of formulate this however you guys would like. But for those that weren't there at the last event, a quick background on me. I graduated from Albany Law School 2018, and I was a pro bono scholar. So my last semester was at the Federal Defenders doing really exciting work there. I was able to second seat a trial and do some hearings. And basically all of my internships in law school were at the Public Defender's Office. So I got really good trial experience there. And something that I always, like looking back, I think, and something that I always did in law school, but looking back, it's kind of funny that I focused so much on my extracurricular activities rather than like the classroom experience. And don't regret that at all, because it really brought me into practice as a barred attorney, already doing trials and hearings as an intern, and just taking in that experience so that when I was a trial attorney, I was able to hit the ground running. Not to say that like Civ Pro isn't really important, but like I just picked the things that I knew I needed and then found the right mentors and advocates, I should say, for that would allow me to have a specific type of law school experience. So I really made the most out of my time at Albany Law. And then right when I graduated, I briefly was in private practice, mainly because the firm was doing like federal work, which I really, really loved and I was really drawn to. And then after like a month there, I went to the Public Defender's Office and loved it. So I've been there, like I said, basically since I graduated. I'm at the Albany County Public Defender's Office now, doing mainly felony trial work, but I have one misdemeanor court, Bethlehem. So if anyone gets arrested in Bethlehem court, please let me know. I really hope you don't, but if you did, I would be representing you. And then I decided to run for the Common Council 2 summers ago. And it was a seat that was filled for about 24 years by which is a longstanding advocate of the community, but he was there for 24 years. And so when he decided to leave, there was just this really big question, like who will take the Richard Conte seat? He was really looked up to in the councils. There was like a lot of questions around, that generational knowledge is going to be lost. Like who will take that spot? Who will represent the Lark Street area? And I could talk about my campaign if that interests people, but really, really long story short, I was told by basically the Democratic establishment, like, you're not going to get the endorsement, like, good luck, because you haven't been here for long enough. Like, you're not a homeowner, so no one cares about you. And the campaign team kind of took that, those comments and really just like fucking grabbed it and said, well, all right, well, we're gonna knock on every single door like 5 times, and we're gonna explain to people why this message and kind of this new type of leader is important. And I always say this, but I really, really feel it. And the more I talk to people, the more I'm like, I gain confidence and excitement about the political process, which I actually hated before I was involved in this whole thing. And it's that it's exciting and invigorating to get positive feedback when you're a leader and you're making like middle mistakes, or you're admitting that you don't know things, and people are like, wow, that's real, that's like honest, like, you know, that's okay. And I wish that so intensely, because I see, for example, the executive branch in Albany, I see them making mistakes. I'm like, that's embarrassing. Like, could you just admit that you did something wrong and like kind of move on from it and say that you fumbled that, and then, you know, come up with a different policy. But people are so afraid to do that. So that's kind of like the campaign story. And so for right now, I'm working on a few different measures, and I'll kind of group them by transparency measures, which are a mixture of changing the rules for the Common Council. Mainly, my biggest priority in the rule changing is to allow for public comment and participation in meetings to continue to be hybrid or virtual. I found that because of COVID, we had a very robust public comment period, which allowed for people to be more involved in government and, you know, more involved in policy making and, you know, just more involved in their community. And that was something that I just think we should continue. And it's not to go off too much on a tangent, but it's just funny when we were talking about it in the meeting, people were like, we can't do that. That's never been done. And actually public meetings law says that you can't do that. And no, Gabriella, we actually can't. I'm like, did you guys read it? Did you guys read the law? Like, you know, because like it's never been done. So like, we can't do it. And everyone's like, I looked it up, actually, we can't do it. And then if you like watch the meeting, people are like, actually, it says nothing about public comment period. And so because it's silent, like we could actually do it. Sorry. I'm like, thank you. All of you guys are so afraid of something different that like might cause more criticism or like more controversy. So it's just funny, like that it's little things like that that I've found that are a little frustrating on the council, but are needed. So that's one transparency measure. The other two things I'm working on that I was talking with Allie about before the meeting started. One of them is a database for code violations, specifically for, you know, property owners or landlords. So renters really can see when there's a massive amount of code violations, and it'll be able to show when it was submitted, you know, where it is in the process, if it's been checked out, if it's closed. It'll also be able to see all the closed violations. So if you're, you know, thinking about if you're interested in a property and they have like 20 closed violations, you're going to know like what happened there. Is that like a bad omen or bad red flag, right, for the future? Still kind of working out the kinks of what exactly that's going to look like, but I am really excited, and thank you, Allie. Really excited to kind of partner with you on that. So that one is going to be probably a simple and straightforward measure, because the city code department's like already doing it. So we're just codifying it in case there's like a new department head that might not feel the same way we do about transparency. And then the other one, very similarly, is a police disciplinary database, which in my head should be no brainer in accordance with the repeal of 50A, which is that all police disciplinary records are public. So, you know, it would technically be saving the city tons of money in FOIL requests, because they don't have to like complete all of these data retrievals. But as everyone here probably knows, there's just a massive pushback from police departments all over the state with providing the disciplinary history of police officers. Even as a public defender, I see it, that like I'm representing someone in a criminal case, and I need to get the police disciplinary records, and they still don't want to give it to me. So I can imagine that members of the public are having bigger problems there. So that's going to be a bit of a more complicated struggle, but one thing at a time. And then what else am I working on? So those are the transparency measures. We're going through local law A and C right now that are really exciting. Local law A allows us to have the Common Council to have confirming power every 4 years. Right now, it's just every time there's a new department head, we have to go through an interview process with that potential appointment. But now it'll just be a check-in every 4 years. This council is very assertive about taking back council power and kind of taking back that power from the mayor, which we've had a very strong mayoral charter, strong mayoral control in the city of Albany for a very long time. So that's something that we're working on, which seems, again, these things are so like no-brainer to me, and then everyone kind of loses their mind about it. But the mayor is pushing back very heavily. And the other one, which you might have heard of, is the Public Safety Commission, which really changes the way we handle public safety as a concept. And there would be a public safety commissioner that, as the way the bill is drafted right now, it would be appointed. And I think I would want for that position to be elected. Still kind of thinking it out in my brain, but it seems like they're so susceptible to, not susceptible, but you don't want to politicize a position, but you're also going to have so much power that I would want someone to be accountable to the voters. I'm still thinking it out in my head, but maybe we can talk about it, what you guys think. But there'd be a public safety commissioner, and then there's a commission as well of 9 people, 5 of which would be appointed by the council, 4 would be appointed by the mayor. Maybe those should be elected too, but I'm not thinking that deep into it. And then the commission would oversee both the police department and the public safety department. And the public safety department would be different from the police in that that would handle first responders, that would handle this so-called nonviolent response to calling the police. And that would, I mean, just saying it out loud, that's like a fundamental shift in the way that we handle public safety. And so massive, really just absolutely massive pushback there from every single department in the city. But I think that it requires a lot of thought and a lot of drafting. So it's going to take the whole year. It's a charter reform as well. So I'm glad we're having that conversation, but it's something that no one wants to have, right? Everyone's like, this is really crazy. This is different, kind of to what I said before. Like, no one's ever done this. It's like, that doesn't mean that it's bad, right? That actually means that we're being creative about how we're handling public safety. So those local law A and local law C are 2 really, really big ones. And then something else that I'm working on that was also interestingly controversial is that right now in the downtown Albany area, it's actually illegal to skateboard. Who knew? Anywhere from Washington Park all the way down to Broadway, like that main corridor is all illegal for you to use a skateboard. So I'm working on a repealer of that ban. All sorts of fun pushback saying that like skateboarders are like, really loud in the park and they're disobeying the laws in the park. I'm like, okay, well, that is unfortunate that you've had that experience, but it actually doesn't go to my legislation. Everyone has like a negative comment to say about skateboarders. And I think that's because people have this negative connotation of skateboarding. The reality is that it's a form of recreation and transportation, and it's like people got to get with the times. So that's been another fun thing that I'm working on. I actually just introduced that last week, so it's going to be coming up soon. I think that's it. That's all like the meat that I've been working on. And I guess to talk about the points that are the most frustrating are just when you want to enact any type of change that like people aren't used to. And it's from different levels, like, the lowest level of change, which is just allowing for skateboarders to skate. And then to the highest level of change, which is like fundamentally changing a department and the way we handle public safety, like really this myriad of different things. Any type of change, people are so apprehensive, and I think as they should be. And so while it's very frustrating, it's also very exciting to be the one that you explain these things to people and explain like why it's needed, why this is different, but it's going to change us for the better. So I've been talking a lot. Please, I would love to get like questions or comments or kind of brainstorm kind of what you guys think about any of the things I just said. But yeah, whatever you guys think, however you want it to go. Yeah.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes it messes up. What about your work with Walkable Albany to make zone area more walkable?
Yeah, I forgot about that. So we collaborated on a resolution, and that is to eliminate the requirement that you push a button to get a pedestrian signal. And thank you, Nathan, I completely forgot about that. But just to explain like what beg buttons are a button that you might see when you try to cross an intersection, and you press this button and you have to wait for the signal to say that you can walk. And as of right now, there are actually streets that you will never get a pedestrian signal unless you press that button. And those are really like the high density, very, very busy streets. But in some places, like some places on Madison Ave, which are busy, but they're not Central Ave, you have that as well. So something that we're working on is actually keeping the buttons. Common misconception. I did mess up the wording, unfortunately, when I rolled this out. We want to keep the button, but we don't want to rely on the button to get the pedestrian signal. So anytime a pedestrian's at an intersection, when the light is red, you'll be able to walk and you'll get that signal. Something I think I want is what's called a pedestrian scramble. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with these like pedestrian actuation devices or urban planning stuff, but a scramble is where you come to an intersection and every single light is red and there's no ability to turn right on red. It's just every car must be stopped and you can actually walk in any direction you want. So you can jaywalk, you can cross from corner to corner, you can cross the street anywhere. And I think that is the most efficient and safe way to do this type of pedestrian infrastructure change. But there's many different ways to do it. And I'm also deciding whether it's going to be in extremely high density areas or if it's going to be across the city. And people have different views on that as well. And I think that maybe the first step would be just in the high density areas, and then we can kind of roll it out further if we feel like that's necessary. But it's just a resolution that was passed in the council a few weeks ago, and that what's next is like a local law or an ordinance. And the difference between that is that a resolution is just like a statement by the council saying like, we really support this idea and we're urging people to consider this idea, or urging a department, for example, to consider this idea. And then a local law / an ordinance is a binding piece of legislation that would actually require something to change. And I see that Daniel actually sent me a DM. It says, my understanding is that most of the buttons are broken / don't work currently. And that is true as well. So what's the point then? Like, what are we doing? What's happening here? So that's just another reason why we should just be getting the automatic signal to begin with. A reason that we don't want to eliminate the button is because people that are differently abled, whether it's in wheelchairs or they're visually impaired, there's a loud sound that comes out, whether it's orienting, saying like, you are on Larkin Madison, you are on Larkin Madison, or like a click that kind of comes out, or there are some that also vibrate when you touch the button or when you're around it, and it's a really intense vibrate. So to the point that like when your hand is like kind of near it, you can kind of feel it in a sense, and that's the haptic feedback component. We want all of that. but we just don't want the button to like be the predicated component before you get that signal. Naturally, traffic engineering is not for this. And so I've met with them and kind of explained to them its utility. But all pedestrian advocates are for it. I know the 6th ward, my jurisdiction is very, very in support. So, you know, when that happens, maybe we do an extremely small jurisdiction. Maybe we just do it for the areas of Larkshire and Madison, and then you keep going further. I'm just really committed to that as a concept. So however we have to do it, I'm into it. So that is what we're working on now. We're working on the local law, and I'm not sure when it's going to be rolled out because there's so many logistics, and we actually don't have a policy council for the Common Council because they just left. So we're figuring out as we go. But I would be I'd be, what's the right word? I'm not rushing to write the legislation myself because I'm a little nervous that it wouldn't, you know, I don't want to create something that's binding and then it's like totally fucks up the city or something. So I have some ideas that I've sent to Corp Counsel in the city, who are actually the mayors for the city, aka mayor or attorneys for the mayor, or like mayor attorneys for the city. So when I did send that email, actually, they're like, oh, we're going to check with traffic engineering. And I'm like, I actually don't want you to do that. I'm like, thank you so much, but like, we don't either. But so we're moving on that one, but it's not as concrete yet. I also got a DM. Josh, do you mind if I read it? So it says, a public safety commissioner position is one which I feel is way too easy to be politicized by elections. Similar to my feelings about judicial positions, maybe have a set amount of elected positions for the commission itself, 4 elected, 3 appointed by council, 2 appointed by mayor. That way, the commission's accountability is a plurality controlled by the public, and maybe a supermajority or unanimous vote of the commission can remove the commissioner. And he said, also, I'm a big fan of roundabouts. Interesting. I hate roundabouts. I think they're terrible. But I just think they're annoying. It's like their utility in traffic is probably wonderful. But minutes vote of the commission. Yeah, I mean, what do you guys think about that? It goes back and forth because I want someone to be accountable and representative of the public, but also by nature of it being an elected position, it's being politicized. So, but then at the same time, if it's a position appointed by the mayor, yuck, right? So we're giving one person that power. What do you guys think about that? And it's like public safety department, right? So there's that in and of itself is very emotional, very politicized concept. So I'm curious what you guys think about that. Yeah, exactly. That's where we're at too. We're also still trying to figure out what exactly we want, which is why it's a discussion and a continuing discussion. It's not going to be, I actually don't think it's going to be resolved this year. No one wants to hear that, but I think that this type of thing should be discussed continually. It's going to be subject to, like I said, a referendum vote, which means it goes on the ballot for voters to actually vote on. But it's also subject to a really robust public hearing component. So Josh says, I see the tough on crime idea seeping its way into the conversation every 4 years. I agree. But if that's what the voters want, is that, I don't know, right? Your screen is green, so I'm just gonna call on you. How do you feel?
How do I feel?
Yeah.
I feel that this is a wonderful, valuable, and productive discussion that we're having right now. But more so than anything, I think that the centralization of power is always a dangerous thing. Like you've been saying, I mean, it's kind of interesting that in the Senate chamber, the US Senate chamber, a lot of people see them, but sitting behind the majority speaker are 2 fasces, which is the traditional symbol for Roman fascism. So it's 100 sticks surrounding an axe head. So we have these bodies of power that are designed to be fascistic by design, or like by principle. And the further centralization of power past that is really, really dangerous. It's always great to see you.
I know. Hi, Ray. So
Yeah, I wish I had any sort of response to add to this discourse. I'm not sure, but I'm enjoying listening to it. I have a few questions in the chat. So one, how do you manage civility with people of different opinions that you have to work with to get some of these really contentious issues done?
I'm used to, in my job as a public defender, I'm really used to people being like, fuck you. Like, I hate you and you're doing a really bad job. And I'm like, okay, thank you so much for like that comment. It is a little hard, Kevin, to deal with this, 13 pounds of drugs and like a butt controlled by. I'm doing my best, but like, so people are always in the criminal legal sphere, coming at you with many different frustrations, pretty much all of them valid. And I've just, I think, developed the ability to kind of take a lot of pressure or criticism and handle it for sure. But there are definitely some times that I wouldn't say I'm not civil, because it's not like I'm not civil, but I'll be like, frankly, I just don't agree with you. Like, I'll tell someone like, I thank you so much for giving me that opinion and for telling me your feelings. However, I do not agree with you, and I fundamentally do not think you're correct. A good example of that is on the campaign when someone said, I just don't think people should own dogs. And I said, because we're talking about like dog poop, as one does like in a local election. And like, that is the one thing I care about. And I actually think that the only way to handle dog poop and trash in the 6th Ward is to send people to jail and eliminate the ability for people to own dogs. And I was like, wow, Ryan, thank you. That is actually such an interesting perspective, one that I do not agree with and fundamentally think is very incorrect. Would you like me to provide you with some like research and materials about the punitive effects of like incarceration and how like that's just not helpful to solve anything that you're talking about? And he's like, no, I'm not going to vote for you. I said, okay, you move on. But I think it's important, and it's just a fundamental thing about me. It's so important to be real and to be honest with people. Like, I'm not going to be like, yeah, I'll think about that. I'm going to say like, you're wrong, respectfully, and let me tell you why. And that's, I think, a large chunk of being a politician is explaining to people why views that they have might not be correct, and really doing the research and doing the work to explain why these may be controversial things or things they haven't thought about before are the right way to handle things. And maybe I feel comfortable with that concept because also as a public defender, I'm so used to telling DAs like, you can't incarcerate everyone. Like you really can't just use prison as your automatic response to any single crime. And so I think I'm really good at being civil, to really answer your question, good at being civil while also just having the data and the confidence to back me up to be civil.
Okay. I have a comment from Olivia. Liv, do you want to talk?
Yeah, actually going off of the discussion we're having, I'm just wondering if there's like a piece of advice or any general advice you wish someone would have given you before getting involved in local politics.
Piece of advice. I think before you get involved in even politics in general, like campaigning, before you get involved in something that is so all-encompassing, like a 24/7 job, that you really need to do an inventory of where you are at everywhere, like socially, romantically, even academically. Like, do I plan on getting another degree? Can't do that. That's okay, that's all right. But you really have to look at where all of the eggs are in your basket and figure that shit out before you decide to take on this thing. Not that I necessarily didn't, but like I'm discovering now that, you know, I really appreciate my evenings, and now I do not have them. And that is okay. But I didn't realize that every single evening I'd have something from like 7 to 9 p.m., which is okay because I love what I'm doing. And I like actually really, really enjoy speaking to people and talking about this stuff. But I wish I did that inventory before to realize all that stuff that I used to do. For example, scrolling TikTok for 2 hours. Like, when am I going to fit that into my schedule now? You don't. You do it for 30 minutes instead. But I just didn't know that, and I didn't anticipate that it would be so all-encompassing. But you pivot, right? That's fine. Now I go to the gym during different times, or plan a more efficient workout. It's all doable, but to really answer your question, I wish I did a further inventory, or I wish someone explained to me specifically how emotional it would be, maybe, because you have people like DMing me on Twitter being like, you need to apologize to like every single person that like voted for you because you like don't want these bail reform rollbacks. And it's like, like, why are you coming at me? You know? And Allie might know me the most out of all of you, but even then, the people that know me know that I just like really care a lot. Sometimes it's a problem. And so I just like, that upsets me. And I want to sit there and explain to him like why bail as a concept is just, you know, is just affecting poor people. And like, I want to like get into this like DM thing with this guy. And that's like, no, you got to take the emotion out of it. You got to be okay with that. So I wish those two things people told me before, but I'm doing it. Anything else? That was a good question. I know. Allie says it's okay to be emotional. I know. I know.
Will not vote for a candidate that wants to roll back bail. You taught me that.
No, I know, but it's sometimes hard though. I think that, you know, Twitter trolls, or even like people in these neighborhood association meetings, like forget that you're a human being, and that when you say things, it's like you can't be so rude, you know. Like this one guy at this neighborhood association meeting is just like always like, or like, you said this thing at this meeting, like, why did you say that? It's like, because it was right. Did you? And what he's referring to, just to kind of give a description, what he's referring to was the using the ARPA funds to give back pay to the police officers, which was just a crazy vote. And I can get into it. It's a little long, and maybe that's for another discussion. But how do you explain that to, you know, Joe Murphy that like didn't read the law and like doesn't know ARPA funds? And you have to like, do I go into that with this person for a 1 hour meeting on a Zoom? No, it's just not worth it. So yeah, I'm glad you said that, Allie. Thank you. I will continue to be emotional. Sorry. Yeah. Anything else?
I have another one in the chat. During law school, was there anything outside of actually learning the law that you found really helpful to learn about like doing the best work that you could in the community?
Doing the best work that I can do in the community. I learned a lot about how to rally people, or you know, at its simplest form, organizing. How do you get a group of people that you don't know, but that are just interested in a topic, to do like a very laborious thing, like call a bunch of people you don't know? You know, that's political organizing. So I think I learned that a little bit in maybe my work in Journal, but also my work in some different pro bono projects. I was somehow the editor-in-chief of GLR, and like telling a bunch, and I also did not want to do the work. So like when I was an editor, so how am I supposed to explain to people like the utility, and the excitement, and the really usefulness of this work when I know it's boring as shit? And that was difficult. So I tried really hard to make it like a fun environment, and to and maybe that's what I took into organizing, is making these spheres feel fun and impactful. And when I say sphere, I mean like social sphere. So I tried to make GLR like a cool place to like cool. I sound like a middle-aged mom right now, but like I tried to make like a cool spot, like snacks and music and stuff. Like anytime you guys come here, we can like do work, and I think that worked actually. So that was good for that. And then I worked on the formally named Immigration Assistance Project. I think it's had a few different names now, but we kind of came together when there was a massive influx of women in ICE detention at Albany County Jail. And so finding people that are interested in that topic, and then telling them, okay, we're going to go spend like 3 hours at a jail a few days a week, and then you're going to have to work an interpreter. That was very difficult. But I think to my earlier point, you have to find people that are interested about a certain topic and want to do something about it. And that's easier to find in law school, because everyone's kind of there because they like want to do something, right? Like we're all here because we want to make some type of impactful change, whether it's like contracts or whatever, or if it's in like the criminal legal world, or if it's in housing, whatever. So those are both kind of probably two examples of things in law school that helped with regard to like organizing, if that goes to your question. But I really, when I think about the stuff that I spent a lot of my time on and my labor towards, it was really, really working on my internship too. I would beg attorneys, like, who is doing a trial? Like, I will do all of your research. I will do all of your exhibits. I will sit with you until the evening hours, like prepping witnesses and stuff, because that's just like what I wanted to do. So that was really the most, when you ask like, outside activities that you did, I really did so much of that, and then found time for these other things too. But I think that answers it, I hope.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you. Ray?
Right. So for those young and aspiring criminal defense attorneys out there, when you're just getting started, does work-life balance exist?
I think it does. I just personally, when I started the public defender's office, I was doing like every local court, which is a night court. So I would be in the office during the day, and then I would go to my night court in the evenings until like 7 or 8 p.m. And I'm not going to answer this in the right way, and I know I'm not, but I loved that. I know that's not, and I know that is not the right answer, and I know that that's like kind of toxic, to be honest, but I was so keen on taking in as much information as I could. And I'm the type of person that's like, my 20s are for learning and like becoming a good attorney, because I knew that I wasn't paying attention in class. So I'm like, I need to learn on the job. And I want to get as much like I said, trial and hearing experience, and just handling this massive influx of cases was okay for me. And so I was actually all right with the way that turned out. And I'm so happy it worked out for me, because now I've probably handled the most misdemeanor cases of like potentially anyone in my office in such a short period of time, because I was every night really just going to a different court and experiencing different judges. So, I mean, even then, I still had a social life. I still found time to relax and work out and like do yoga and go out. And like see my family. So it's just a matter of like making it work. I know that's not the right answer though, because like I did a lot. during those first 2 years.
Well, I mean, if you love something, are you ever really working, right?
Yeah, and you know, to that point, I love my job so much, and um, I'm so happy to be someone that like wakes up and is like, yeah, like can't wait to like go defend all my clients and like have a great day. So I know that's unusual and a little bit potentially negative, but I am appreciative for my first few years in practice because I learned so much and it made me really who I am. So, but it's not always that way. If anyone wants to be a public defender, it's not always like that. I just jumped in at a time when the public defender's office was really, really going from this shift. It was right before like discovery reform and like right before bail reform when those conversations were being had by public defenders and obviously by the legislature for years. But the people that were doing this like so-called like, you know, crazy like public defense are people that were like, we need to clog the courts. We need to take everything to trial. We need to put the onus on the prosecutors because that's how you take control of a court. And that is a new shift because old public defendering used to be very plea focused and very intense on like just getting the best deal you can, or which is essentially a practice, but it's always plea focused as opposed to taking the control back, requiring all the evidence to be seen before you accept an offer, which is statutorily protected now, but was not before discovery reform, pushing people to the absolute farthest you can possibly push them, and then accepting a plea deal. So I came on at a time where we were really shifting, and the office was moving towards that more radical defense practice. And because of that, people were moving away from local courts. So I had to come in and be like, misdemeanors are very important. So I'm appreciative for that. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. But you can. I want to be clear that like, you please be a public defender and you can do it and you'll have work-life balance. And there's so many more attorneys now than we had before. So it's really a different environment than it was when I first started.
I hope we can all find careers that we love as much. Allie, go ahead.
I'd love to hear your thoughts, and you're in like a really great position to have some perspective on this, on how as a practicing attorney, you're able to also like maintain your lefty roots. I know sometimes people are like, you can't say that, you're going to be an attorney. And I know like I spent the last several years as a full-time organizer. I say what I want. Like it's a little unique to like not be able to just like say I hate capitalism and burn it down. Like how do you balance that?
What else do you think we can't say as attorneys? Like what are some things that people have said?
I don't know. I'm like, wait, I couldn't do criminal law because I think I'd be found in contempt like day one. But like people learn, like I don't know, like I'm gonna skip con law tomorrow and I'm gonna go be disruptive in the Capitol because ending homelessness is way more important than one day, you know, of con law. And like I think when people like learn, like you can't do that, like you're an attorney, like you have these high ethics that you have to like stand on. And I'm like, but don't you have ethics like that say we shouldn't have homelessness? Like that doesn't keep you up at night? Because that keeps me up at night. And I think like, I know you think about that. I know I was in the room when we were talking about like, oh, you know, are you a common council member or a public defender? And like, you know, that balance is tough.
Yeah. Public defenders, I feel like my office now, it really encourages me to push the limits in every way. And if anything, like I am kind of known in court for like not having a filter, and I do a great job, frankly. like my clients, most of like I like the fact that I'm encouraged and allowed to be very pushy and frankly, as a defense attorney, that is your job. I consider it to be your job to be pushy because you can't just like sit and like, you can't just like sit and take it. And that's, if you did, then, we'd have like everyone be incarcerated. DAs are naturally, the way that the plea bargaining process is that DAs are going to give you a terrible offer until you push them. So I think uniquely public defenders are allowed to be rude, are allowed to like kind of interject and say things. But to my friends that are in private practice that have similar views, I think that they are kind of stunted sometimes. I think that they feel in order to keep your job and to keep this level of professionalism, that they need to be like, oh, interesting. Excuse me, kind of to my point earlier when talking to constituents, which I do handle DAs the same way, that in a private practice you have, because they're giving you money, right? So you have to be like, well, that is an interesting thought, and thank you, and I'll like take that to my partner and we'll consider that. And maybe because I'm not being paid, I don't know, maybe where I'm able to be so much more real with both DAs and my clients and my coworkers. So I actually don't have any. To answer your question, Allie, I actually don't feel like I need to restrict myself with a lot of my really not radical, I mean, my like lefty type views. I don't feel that way, thankfully. And maybe that's why I also love my job so much, because they are also very similarly minded. Like today we, a big group of us went to the Capitol to stand with people that were advocating against bail reform rollback. So like that is now, just now though, like in this past year, in this past few months, I should say, that my boss is like really allowing us to do that, because he did not like a year or two ago. But even then, like when he didn't want us to publicly be as outspoken as an office, I would still go and do stuff on my own. But he'd be like, remember, you're not from the public defender's office, you're a criminal defense attorney. I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm still gonna go. I'm still gonna say what I think. So even when I was relatively inhibited in a certain extent, I still didn't hold myself back, which is nice. And I understand that that's a privilege, and I'm lucky to have that.
Definitely. I have another question in the chat about career advice. So this one says, I've always had an interest in legislation and policy, and I've always wanted to work in the government. However, in my last year, it is getting to the point where I have to think about how I'll pay off my loans. So private policy making or government affairs has become more alluring. What would you say to someone who loves government and wants to work in government, but also isn't satisfied with the salary and can't make that work?
Yeah, we live in a great city for government work, in the sense that that's twofold, right? Like Albany gives you, like obviously I'm biased because I love Albany, but Albany gives you a certain, city feel while there's activities that are constantly going on. And then you have that urban feel to your living environment, but you also are able to be right next to government. In that sense that like rent isn't as expensive as it would be in New York City or DC. That's what I mean by that in the Albany living. But also like there's like programs for public service, and that is something that's kind of nice for us that are involved in government work, that they give you truly the lowest possible payment that you could have. Well, so you're able to have that low payment for your loans while also living in an urban environment. And because it's Albany, the rent's not going to be necessarily as cheap as it would be in other, like I said, DC or New York. But I definitely know that state legislature type jobs are still lower than you would get at a lobbying firm. And that's something that you have to think about for yourself and think if that is worth it for you. Personally, I think it is worth it for me, and knowing, because I was in private practice for that brief moment, getting paid differently than I did at the public defender's office, that it just wasn't exciting for me. It wasn't invigorating and fulfilling for me. So the cut in pay was fine because I was doing something that made me happy. And like, yeah, I can't get my like Lululemon leggings every month, but whatever. I'm so happy at my job that it doesn't matter. but that's a very personal decision, and that I think is very different for everyone. So if whoever asked that question, if you wanted to like DM me, we could have like a more private conversation about that. I would be happy to do that with you. But one also point about the public defender's office is that we get paid so well now, and it's like not comparable with private firms, but it's up there. We've received like really, really good grants from the state and county governments that are funding public defenders because they realize how intense the work is. And so I've been pretty much getting a raise like every year since I've started, to be honest. So. Anything else? I can put my email and phone number in the chat if anyone has any follow-ups. You could also send me a DM, whatever works for you guys. And this was wonderful. Thanks for having me. I really look forward to the time that we can have an in-person chat, just because the vibes are so different. And I'd love to come back whenever you guys have another event like this. Let me just put all my info in there.
Thank you so much. And thank you for taking this time. It was a really, really interesting and I think productive conversation. If anyone, has any other questions, feel free to reach out to me or anyone on the NLG. I'll give everyone a few minutes to take down your information. And hopefully in the future, everything will be in person, normal, and it'll be a big community event. Okay, doesn't seem like I have any more coming in the chat, so I can wrap it up. Thank you again.
Great. Okay, thanks for having me, guys.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming, everyone.